Let's kick it off with the best and worst kicks and your general observations.
Yeah, so we've had to wait a period of time into the season to be able to get our kicking analysis numbers correct and up to date for 2025, hence why we haven't been able to report on that up until now. And given that we have correct data now, we thought it's now best to reveal who the best and worst kicks
Tim
are.
Watson will be tuning in at the moment.
And it's key to remember this is off our kick rating, so this takes into account how much pressure an individual is under,
right,
and what type of kick that they're trying to pull off, and whether or not they have or they haven't. So how far above or below expectation you are kicking based off the types of kicks you are trying to pull off. So kicking efficiency that we all see wherever we are and what have you, no. That's not the best measure to actually truly tell us who are the best and worst kicks in the competition. This is the measure that tells you who the best and worst kicks are.
So some of the Finn Callahan kicks on Sunday are worth more than just a good kick inside 50 because of the degree of difficulty and what's at stake for where he's trying to kick the ball.
Spot on. Like if you're a halfback flanker or a fullback, and you take a mark and you kick it short 15 metres in your D50, your kicking efficiency is going to be 100%. Doesn't mean you're a great kick. I mean, I can pull off that sort of kick. Our kick rating will take into account, well, that's just an AFL average kick. You're not a great kick. You're not a poor kick. You're just an AFL average kick.
When the Lizard wound up the tail on the weekend and ran 100, where did I see it? It was on the bounce, I saw it. It was about 127 metres.
And then what about the kick?
And then the kick. How did you rate that final kick, which was a dribbler, but it actually hit a target?
Did it hit a target? I can't remember. I think
it hit Hayward.
If it hit Hayward, it would have gone.
Well, it didn't hit him. It sort of just wobbled and dribbled to him.
And that's all the end result that takes into account with this system is, did it get to a teammate or did it not? Doesn't matter if it floated. Doesn't matter if it was the greatest drop punt of all time. The end result is, did it get to a teammate? It's like the old, four in cricket. It doesn't matter if you nick it through first slip or if you smack a cover drive through cover. It's both got to the boundary.
It's not how, it's how many.
Correct. So, So anyway, we're going to start on the positive. Right? Yes. We're going to get into the show today with a bit of positivity and what have you, then we'll get into the feedback that will come with the negative. So this tells a story of where the game is. We keep talking about the game is how you use it, not necessarily how you win it.
Yes.
Okay, so ball use. If you have greater impact with ball in hand than your opposition this year, you're winning 85% of matches. Mm-hmm. If you have greater impact with how you win the footy, you're winning 65% of matches. So keep that in mind. So these are the top 10 kicks. We'll go from best to worst because we'll do the other way for the worst kick. So the best kick in the competition, and by a long way, is Bailey Dale this season. He's kicking 10% above expectation based on the types of kicks that he's trying to pull off. Max Holmes, second best kick in the comp. Carl Amon, Jasper Fletcher, Lockie Ash, Mason Redman, Riley Bice.
I'm glad you mentioned Mason Redman because whilst he's a magnificent kick, someone needs to teach him proper handball technique. I digress.
You and your handballs.
You're going quick here. Dale Holmes, Amon.
Yep. Jasper Fletcher. Having a really good impact behind the footy, Jasper Fletcher this year.
What are they going to? All those injured players trying to come back for the one spot, they're not going to get in.
Can you imagine having some individuals with Coleman, Zorko, Wilmot, Fletcher behind the footy to a team that already moves the footy well? Christ almighty. So Jasper Fletcher comes in as the fourth best kick in the comp. Lockie Ash, fifth best kick. We've talked about Lockie Ash this season.
You've got him the best player in the game.
Now the second best player. Ed Richards had another blinder on the weekend, comes into number one. Lockie Ash, number two, having a fantastic season. Mason Redman, as we said. Riley Bice, been a really good pickup for the Swans. Well done to the Swans recruiters for nailing that. He comes in as a top 10 kick in our competition this season. Zach Guthrie comes in next.
Yeah, that's good. He's a beautiful kick.
Yeah, so Geelong have two of the top 10. Luke Ryan, number 9, and Massimo D'Ambrosio rounds out the top 10. So the interesting component to that is that of the top 10, 8 of them are halfback flankers.
Yep, that's why they're playing there.
Yes, and that's why they're across there. So that takes into account. So this is none of this. They're getting cheap ball. No, that takes into account how they're actually getting their ball and what types of kicks that they're trying to pull off. So the halfback flankers own 8 of the top 10 kicks in our competition at round 9 at the moment.
Any
Halfback.
surprises there, Gerard?
No, I'm just trying to look up the name of a player I thought might have been there, whose name escapes me. Halfback flank tagged Jordan Dawson on the weekend. Ralphie's boy, Ralph Bergman's boy.
Yeah, Miller Bergman. Oh, Miles Bergman.
Miles
Yeah,
Bergman. Beautiful looking kick, but sometimes good looking kicks can be good looking misses. Where's he rate?
Yeah,
he
there's a lot of them.
He looks like a magnificent kick to me.
Guess where he is, G? He's in the top 20 worst
Yeah,
kicks in the
bad.
country.
He's a good misser.
This season. So
Good-looking misser.
Miles Bergman is in that group. So I don't know if there's any sort of real surprises within that group there. There's a couple that are just sitting outside that top 10. Really interesting this year. Tom Green sits just outside the top 10 this year.
Yeah.
And now his ratings for the first time in his career are inside the top 30 players in the competition off the back of how he's using it.
Can I ask you, should you be rewarding somebody for going for too much and hitting it every now and again, but taking a kick that you probably shouldn't take, but they take it anyway, and they hit it 3 times out of 10?
It's an interesting question, and I'm sure a lot of coaching groups would be having that conversation with certain individuals. But there are players that can pull off that kick, and when they do, the game just completely opens up, and the ability to then be able to score off the back of it, I think, is at times worth the risk if your defensive system behind the footy is set up accordingly to be able to protect yourself.
Right, let's get into the good business.
Well, there's a lot of text here, Gerard, so I just want to fold a couple in while we're going here. I think a lot of people have asked about Wanganeen Miller, where he sits. Is he close to the top 10?
Wanganeen Miller is in the positive, slightly in the positive, but no, a fair way off the top 10 at the moment. Zach Merritt, let me have a look where Zach Merritt is. Zach Merritt, unfortunately, is not near the top 10. At the moment, his expected hit rate is 54% for Zach Merritt. He's going at 50%.
Yeah, I was actually watching Wanganeen Miller's game on the weekend, had 30 plus, but his efficiency was in the 50s.
He's had a couple of those games this year.
Round one was horrendous,
but
everyone was horrendous in round one for the Saints.
So now we'll get into the part where I'll brace myself to receive the criticism on the way out.
10 to 1?
No. We'll go from the worst kick to the 10th worst kick because I think the 10th worst kick is going to create more controversy than who the worst kick in the competition is this year. So the worst kick so far this season is Liam Baker, who's kicking 10% below expectations. So we talked about Bailey Dale going 10% above. Yeah. He's going 10% below. Luke Traynor, first-year player for Richmond, is also going. He's going at 9% below expectation. Now comes some interesting names. Jordan Dawson, third worst kick in the comp this year.
Well, so in his rut 2 weeks ago, he was just kicking up and unders.
Yeah, he has, and I know I see him high up on the coaches votes, and his raw stat sheet looks good. I'm sure he's doing a lot of things well, without the footy. But in terms of what he's done so far this year, he is the third worst kick in the competition. George Hewitt is the 4th worst kick in the competition, doing so much right in terms of what he's been able to do in nullifying his opponents, and his ball winning stuff is through the roof, but his ball use by foot is poor.
So to make this bad list, are you generally just missing easy kicks?
No, it's a bit of a mix.
Bit of a mix
for all of them. So, so Jordan Dawson is someone that's going for harder kicks and missing them. Someone like a Luke Traynor is going for easier kicks and missing those.
Missing goals get penalised more than missing?
No, not off this. Doesn't matter. Right. Off the rating system it does, not off this. Yep. So Liam Duggan comes in as the 5th worst kick in the competition. Another interesting name here, Finn Callahan. Much better on the weekend. Better on the weekend, but had a patch where he was going poorly.
It's one of the problems of the West Coast. Their halfback flanker, everyone wants good kicks off the halfback, and he's one of the worst kicks in the league, and he's a distributor.
Liam Baker, are you talking about? Duggan. Yeah, so Duggan's in there as well. Yeah, Jai Simpkin comes in as a 7th worst kick. Jake Saligo, another Crow, who's in there as well, comes in as the 8th worst kick. I'm surprised about this one as well. Archie Roberts comes in as a 9th worst kick, doing a lot right, but can improve in that area of the game, and he's probably the biggest surprise of all. Nick Dacos, 10th worst kick in the competition this season. Meant to be going at 58%, is going at 53%. His accuracy in front of goal, meant to be going at 41%. Nick is going at 29%. 17 shots at goal, going at 29% accuracy by foot. So
Can you ring up the Herald Sun and tell them to hold the back page?
Might need a week in the VFL, Nick Dacos.
Which is actually, it's interesting. I had this conversation with a couple of people yesterday. It's interesting that, he's going like that by foot.
Yeah.
And they're still the best team in the competition.
Yeah.
So,
it's the impact of the tag.
Yes, and I was just about to say this. You've been on this, and I can't stop watching it. And Nick Dacos on our rating system is currently outside the top 100 players in the comp.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's had blinders this year. Like his game against Brisbane was unbelievable. Essendon was unbelievable in games where he didn't get tagged. But he's been tagged 5 times for the year, and only once against James Jordan did he get away. And I know I've spoken to you about it, G, that no matter who you are, it's harder. It's harder getting tagged. So he's been tagged 5 times. 4 times he's been kept to either expectation, which you'd sign up in a heartbeat playing against him, or slightly below expectation. So,
well, the lack of hard tag on Lachie Neale for parts of the last half cost North Melbourne the game, and I'm sure Clarko said you're on him, and then Dylan Stevens, it was on him at one bounce I saw, and he went one way and Lachie Neale went the other. I'm thinking, he's a dual Brownlow medalist, mate. He makes his living as a stoppage player. What are you doing?
I didn't sense that frustration in the commentary at all listening to you on Sunday. I wouldn't have thought you were angry by that at all.
A lot of texts have actually said or was suggesting that Nick Dacos was going to be the surprise. So quite a few
our audience is
they're on the money.
They're over it.
And a lot of people, there's a few people that have thought Nick Blakey might have been on the worst list.
Let me have a look. Where is Nick Blakey? Yeah, Nick Blakey is slightly below expectation this year.
I would have thought he's not. I reckon he's missed some targets.
Yep, no, he has.
By going for way too much. That little chip where it looks like you're going to go long, but he kicks it 15 metres and misses the target.
Yeah, no, so he's slightly below expectation this year for Nick. So it might be a couple of surprises there either way.
That's a very good
James
surprise.
Sicily, I know you want to get onto other things, but there's a lot of...
Well, he's had a bad couple of weeks, Sicily. He had the wrong boots on 2 weeks ago.
Sicily's starting to come good. Starting to come good. Had a few poor patches there, but he's starting to come good, slightly above expectation now as a result.
Righto, nice work and a good start from you, Hoyne. Let's move on. Talking Points begins with the old Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. So I'm talking about Essendon.
Oh.
Yeah, this is why we're talking about Essendon today. So we obviously know where they're at as a list or where they're at as a footy club. They're transitioning, they're young, and they've made no secrets about that this year. And
big declaration by the co-host that they're going to win a final next year and win a couple of finals in 87. What did we call it? 27.
And we've spoken about Essendon and defensively for I don't even know how long. It's been a pretty boring conversation for 10 plus years or so.
You've been getting whacked by Essendon supporters for years.
So the last 5 weeks, so since they had that bye at round 3 or 4, whatever it is, on the surface, their defensive numbers are numbers that we haven't really associated with Essendon for a long time.
In a good way.
So so Collingwood are the second. Only Collingwood are harder to score against than Essendon when they win possession of the footy. So huge tick.
Yep.
So if you win possession of the footy against Essendon, only Collingwood are harder to score against than them. When the ball gets inside Essendon's defensive 50, they are the hardest D50 to score against in the competition. Last 5 weeks.
That's 2 ticks.
Huge. Yeah, and as I said, we haven't seen that with Essendon. However,
not the turnover.
You've got to dig a little bit deeper into this, right?
Yeah.
So defensively, huge tick, but offensively at the moment, it is completely gone. There's no worse team in the competition for turning possession into a score than what Essendon are. They're the second worst team in the competition at going from one end of the ground to the other, right? So that's something that those two profiles there are completely flipped to what we've seen from Essendon over the last 10 years. Yeah. But you've got to look at the way in which they're defending at the moment. And it's going to be interesting over the next 5 or 6 weeks to see whether or not this defensive profile, these numbers, are actually real or whether they're not. So over this 5-week period, they are the slowest ball movement team in the competition. And we keep saying there's no right or wrong way. No. This doesn't mean fast is good and slow is bad. But they're the slowest team in the competition.
Are they going slow so they can set up their defence?
I'll keep getting. In terms of their aggression towards goal, there's no team that goes with less aggression towards goal than what Essendon do. Mm. You saw it on the weekend with their just pure disposal numbers. 320 uncontested possessions they had versus Sydney.
Yep.
An Essendon team has never done that in Champion Data's history. They had 307 disposals in the back half of the ground. That's the most by any team in any game in 6 years. We talk about control and chaos. So what wins your finals and what wins you home and away games. So we get finals over, so home and away games over the last 5 years, 50% of matches are control, so there's more marks than ground balls, and 50% of chaos. But in a final series, that goes to 80% of chaos. In Essendon games this year, when they've played in control matches, they are 5-0. They get to play that keepings off, hold the footy, hold the footy, hold the footy. When they get drawn into a chaos game, 0-3. Okay, so I'm looking at this going, I just wonder if this is real or if it's not real. Look at the way Collingwood defend and you go, that's real. Like, that's a defensive profile that is rock solid off the back of playing chaotic footy, fast footy, and they get involved in that sort of ping pong game and they can stand up. Essendon give you a look. They're holding up well on the surface. I don't know if you guys agree or not. They're holding well on the surface, but how they're playing, is that real? Time will tell over the next 5 or 6 weeks when they come, especially this week when they come up against the Dogs, a really good offensive team who can get you into a chaos game. Will that profile stand up or not?
But surely if you are trying to build your defence and even build a chaos game, you've got to have a basis upon which to build. And that would seem to me the first two were ticks. And to me, that's a good launch pad. Okay, in attack, if you're then going to go slow and slow, you can quicken that up as long as you've got the defence set behind you.
Yeah, but you're also, we know in this, by doing this for so long, we've spoken about, at length for a number of years, what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And you know what's real and what's not. The holding the footy, the keepings off the footy, the playing the control game. Yeah, I get that they're they have to start from somewhere. So hats off to them from actually just being able to get a defensive profile in place for a 5-week period that, that is hard to play against. But you just wonder with a younger team that is transitioning, can they actually just evolve this defensive profile over the next 5 or 6 weeks? That will be interesting to track on our end.
You're saying 5 weeks. I'm not sure it's a coincidence, but my gut feeling is there's a large part of it. I have never seen a player improve as much in a 5-week period as Reid, their fullback.
Yeah, no, and he's been fantastic, and it's great to watch, and it's recognition to the recruiting staff.
So how much can you attribute in the improvement just to the improvement of the power of one?
No, I don't think he can hold a defensive system to purely one individual. Yeah, he's going to help, but I think it's more. I just wonder whether or not it's more of a collective. They get to, that round 3, round 4 bye where, they had conceded some significant scores in the first, 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Let's try and address this. Let's change up the way that we defend to actually make us competitive. This is what we're going to go with for the next 5 weeks. If that's what it is, hats off, because the defensive numbers have backed up to that. But will that stand up across the course of the season, just how they're defending?
Well, watching from the grandstand on the weekend, it seemed to me that Ben Mackay was much more confident because he had this young bloke behind him that was mopping up everything.
Yeah, and as I said, we'll just wait and see. Yep. But we've seen this story before.
Okay.
I reckon it's purely with who they've played. That's a big test.
They've had it, yeah, and that's why, and that's exactly why we wanted to put it on. Is it real or is it not real? With
so
what they've got coming up?
Are you passing a big question mark on the win-loss critics?
Oh yeah, we've got to look at big picture. We don't jump at just a W and an L on a Saturday or a Sunday. You got to look at big picture.
Eddie,
put it
can
on
you
watch.
pass that on to Kane before he goes on air? Thanks, mate.
All right, let's get to Collingwood.
Yeah, so I want to talk about just an individual, if we can. I'm going to talk about Darcy Cameron. He is the meat to the pies.
Darcy,
where you going?
I like it.
He is
it
the
took
meat.
a while, but
I love
meat.
a pie, and he is the meat to the pies.
Okay.
So this guy,
DMC, right?
This guy,
Run DMC.
This is going. This might sound ridiculous, but he needs to be treated how Max Gawn is getting treated by opposition teams.
Yeah.
He is Collingwood's Max Gawn. He's so important to what they do. He's currently inside the top 100 rated players in the competition, and potentially Collingwood knew what they were doing beforehand, because in 2021, where they made the decision at the end of 2022, whatever it was, to get rid of Grundy on. He was already a top 100 player on our rating system. So potentially they already knew what they had. But so Collingwood, we talk about Collingwood's defensive profile, right? It is probably the best defensive profile in the competition. No one is harder to score against when you win possession of the footy than what Collingwood are. However, they do give you a look in the ball movement game. They're bottom 6, Collingwood, at defending ball movement from one end of the ground to the other. But when it gets in there, they're so hard to score against. And I think this guy plays such a significant role in that aspect of the game. So to put in context what he has done so far this year and over the last 18 months, we'll start with this year. He's taken 25 intercept marks this year. In Champion Data's history of 26 years, life didn't exist before that 26-year period. He's taken 25 intercept marks. No ruckman has ever done that at this stage of the season. Taken 25 intercept marks. You look at what he's done over the last 18 months. He's taken 81 intercept marks. Max Gawn has taken 65. The next highest ruckman is 50. He's streets ahead of any other ruckman in the competition, along with Max, who we all consider to be the best ruckman of the last, 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to go with. So, and then you look at his season so far this year, and the only game for the year where he hasn't taken an intercept mark was against Geelong, when Mark Blitzarves played on him for the majority of the night after Reece Stanley went down. Collingwood lost that game. That was the most points Collingwood has conceded in a game of footy since opening round against GWS, where he wasn't able to actually impact the game. So just treat this guy how you would treat Max Gawn if you're a contender. You've got to go to work on Collingwood for the next couple of months before finals. He is integral to what this team is doing defensively.
Hoyne, does Champion Data have a relationship with Fremantle?
We've got relationships with everyone, G. We're a very friendly bunch.
Obviously, they missed the bit about the intercept marks to Darcy Cameron because they tried to highlight and improve his stats.
Guess who before the break?
Yes, this guy is the 4th highest rated general forward in the competition. 4th highest rated general forward in the competition. Who is he? Yes, I'm so proud of him.
That's a chip in from off the green.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yes, no, well done, Whitey. And there's a few on the text.
Good acting from you too. When I said Seth Campbell, he made me feel very insignificant.
He demeaned you. He belittled you. He tried to.
I'll tell you what. When Whitey's back in the
set.
studio, Sammy, I'm having the week off. That's 2 from 2 for Sammy. So I just wanted to I wanted to talk about Seth Campbell of Richmond. We don't talk about Richmond too much this year, obviously, with where they're at the moment. But this guy is just having a sneaky good season ahead of the footy. He's balanced between how he uses it and how he wins it is rare for a small forward, and then combining his defensive actions, his top 5 of all small forwards in the competition, with how he impacts the game through his defensive work. So. And then I think, if you're a Richmond supporter this year, you're just looking for little bits and pieces. So overall, from a team performance side of things, the things that are mid-table, which I think if you're a Richmond supporter, if you're mid-table in anything of significance this year, it's a tick. It's a huge tick. So their ground ball work, both at stoppage and away from stoppage this season, is mid-table. Their ability to be able to score out of their back half and off their ball movement game is mid-table. So they're 2 huge ticks to what Adam Muse is doing. And then you look at it from a list perspective, and of their top 5 players, top 5 rated players this season, 3 of them are kids. So Seth Campbell, Tom Brown, and Lawler is already in their top 5 players, along with Nank and Nick Vlosten are also in their top 5. So there's little glimpses there for Richmond. If you're a Richmond supporter with what they're doing,
exciting.
How many more wins they have, for the rest of the season, who knows? But all you're looking for is that little glimpse, and this guy is delivering that for you right at the moment.
A lot of feedback on the text, and I'm only going to read out one. It comes from Corey Mobilio. Another shocker from the boss. Corey, of course, works at Champion Data.
Yeah, he was almost going to text you in tonight too.
Struggle to focus for the rest of the show now.
Yeah, look at you. I've never seen you so happy, Whitey.
That was a big call. Just before we get on to the Cats, just a couple have said Sean Manor, and there's quite a bit of love for Archie Perkins as well on the on the text. Are they sort of figuring thereabouts?
Yeah, no, Archie Perkins is having a sneaky good year as well. He's rated inside our top 100 players across the competition, but not in there. And Sean Manor is rated really highly in our system and has been for the best part of 12 months. So, our audience is on the money tonight.
And Gunston and Elliott aren't figuring.
Elliott is really high up. Where is Elliott? I'll come back to you on Elliott. There he is. Where is he? He's inside the top 35 players across the competition this year as well. So
what about Jesse Hogan, who's already got a mention tonight? A caller or a texter who's from down at Flinders wants to know, why don't you rate Jesse Hogan as highly as you should?
As we should. Well, he's the 12th best player in the competition.
Well, there you go.
This year, and last year he was the 20th best player in the comp. So no, he's a superstar.
Okay.
All right, talk about flying. We've got to fly through some categories here before the next break. The Cats.
So Geelong. So put it first on the radar. Their draw. They've had a really, really hard draw. The last 5 weeks, they've played in 5 cracking games in a row. Take that into account. And then the injury side of things.
Yep.
Okay, I reckon there's injuries and then there's injuries. If you're going to get injuries to 1/3 of the ground, that's when it really impacts you. And if that third of the ground is behind the footy, I think that's the last third of the ground where you actually want to get impacted, and they've been impacted there. So we're putting that on the radar. However, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, if this defensive profile continues with how they're defending the turnover game, which we talk about that all the time, 60% of the game is that, then this mob is in trouble. Because right now they are the second easiest team to score against off the back of turnover. And I know, as we said, we've taken into account the draw.
And the injuries.
But that's what we want to see now over the next 4 or 5 weeks once these guys start to come back and the draw opens up. Can that change? Because it's a very unlike a Chris Scott profile. And you look at their defensive numbers, how they're defending clearance has not been an issue. Their clearance game is in red hot nick offensively and defensively. But then the turnover game, and especially off transition, you saw that with GWS on the weekend. This is not a first. So that half-back area, that trampoline area, they've given AFL average is that you can see 2 goals off turnover in that area.
Per game.
Well, they've given up 5 goals to GWS, 5 goals to Collingwood, 5 goals to Carlton, 5 goals to Adelaide in that area. And you watched it on the weekend without a couple of those and the system behind the footy looked completely lost.
Yep.
But when they're defending stoppage, when they're, and the game's slow and it's stopped down and you just got to defend one-on-one, defend for your life for 10, 15 seconds, they're fine. But when it becomes that system, that's where I'm interested to see these individuals haven't been there.
Yep.
Now that they're starting to come back, does this tidy up, or is this actually who they are for 2025? And
or
if
if
it
people worked it out, Kane and Nick Rewald had some really good vision last night on the setters. And it just showed Callahan switching the play, waiting for the defenders to get committed, and then banging it to the other side, which exposed them. Good vision.
Yeah, no, and we're talking about GWS. That's who they are. They're a change of angles and an aggressive change of angles team, which you need your system behind the footy to be prepared for that. With what they had out there on the weekend behind the footy, they were always going to be a bit vulnerable. But as I keep saying, now that they're coming back, does that profile change or does that not change?
It felt like the Giants were trying to go doubly quick because of the issues they had in defence. And it made for great footy because it moved so quickly.
I think it was more that they were on the surf coast. They thought the tsunami is on.
That's right. They were riding the crest of a wave. Let's go to Melbourne.
Yeah, so I want to give Harvey Langford some plaudits for his season, not just what he did on the weekend against Hawthorn, which was significant.
I spoke to Angry from Armidale today, who's been a mad Melbourne supporter for 45 years. He thinks at the end of his career, Harvey Banger will be the greatest Melbourne player. Do the numbers give you any indication that Angry's on the money?
I like Angry, but we're not going there. We'll steer clear of that. We'll just focus on what Harvey is doing this year. So I just wonder, so his ability to be able to get forward on the weekend and outmark his opponent and kick 2 or 3 goals? 3 goals. 3 goals or whatever. I just wonder whether or not Ollie Dempsey's starting to create a new position of, that winger, that high winger forward who can mark, charge forward, try and get someone, that is a bit of a mismatch, because this guy has size about him and he's clearly really good above the air. And then what stands out is just how he actually uses a footy. So on that game on the weekend, no one had greater impact of the 46 players on the ground than what he did through ball use on the weekend. So he is a 2025 footballer that you want in your team. You want the footy.
Good pick by the Demons.
Great pick 6. So, and then you look at the relative ratings and having a look at some youth that's coming through, which we measure how far above expectation you're performing for your age and position. He's performing 46% above expectation this year, so he's absolutely flying. Lawler as well is performing 48% above expectation. So the rising star race is going to be really interesting.
Who's leading it at the moment?
I think this guy's probably
Harvey?
in front. I reckon he's in front. I reckon O'Sullivan's not too far behind, and Lawler's going to be right there as well.
Do you see any Bontempelli in this kid?
But not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
You haven't nailed it, Angry, but it's a long
but
journey.
he's flying.
Let's go very quickly through the Hawks and the Bulldogs.
Yeah, so 4 weeks ago we put on watch that Hawthorn's profile wasn't where it was, and listened to Sam Mitchell, who kept talking and kept talking about it. Well, right now, over the whole season, not just the last 4 weeks, over the whole season, they've got the second best profile in the comp. So they've benefited off having a bit of a cushy draw over the last 3 weeks to get a bit of confidence going, to get some things going back. With the footy now, 5th best profile in the competition. Without it, 2nd best profile in the competition. Their post-clearance work that we spoke about last year has been a real indicator for how they were going early on in the season is back. They've won it for the last 7 games. But they do have one issue at the moment, and that is their overall clearance game, which is the 4th worst in the competition for raw clearance work. And it's really interesting where it's actually coming from. Their centre bounce work is not a problem at all. They are one of the best centre bounce teams in the comp. But it's what they're doing from throw-in and ball-up work that would be the concern, and is going to be fascinating this week coming up against Gold Coast, who thrive in that situation. So you think about on the weekend against Melbourne. Melbourne had 5 forward 50 stoppages on the weekend. They won clearances 5-0 in their own forward 50 against Hawthorn. Didn't get the scoreboard return that they probably should have. It's so rare to do that. They are the worst D50 clearance team in the competition, Hawthorn. So they've got aspects of their game that are clearly improving, clearly going well. But they do have that little area in which they can fix, which would be fascinating to see on Thursday night.
And no Lloyd Meek this week either for the Hawks.
Is he out, is he?
He's not coming to Darwin. The Bulldogs?
Thought that was a cracking game on Saturday night. And sometimes you can lose, and I reckon sometimes you lose and you can walk away actually getting some pats on the back in a really hard environment, a cracking game of footy. Just a couple of interesting points for me out of that. So James O'Donnell, at the moment, and hats off to Beveridge for making this call, which was a huge call. He's his last month, in 3 of his last 4 weeks, take the GWS game, out of that, he's actually going extremely well and sits just outside the top 100 rated players across the competition. How he uses it for a key defender is top 10, and then his actual pure defensive work is top 5 for all key defenders in the competition. So clearly, they knew what they had inside their own 4 walls. He's having more impact on the game at the moment than what Rory Lobb is, which probably might be a bit of a surprise to a few people. And then the other interesting part, which is, I reckon, is a huge positive for the Dogs, is that last quarter, what are they, 28 points down, 7 minutes to go. And then in the next 4 minutes, they get to within 3 points. It was amazing to watch. But they didn't do it off the back of their absolute stars. They did it off the back of some of their next run tiers, if you like. So Bailey Dale aside, who was phenomenal in that last quarter. Their other highest rated players, Riley West, who just put this on, number 1 forward 50 ground ball player in the comp this year, Riley West, flying with what he did.
Just needs to finish a bit better.
O'Donnell, 3rd highest rated Bulldog in the last quarter, and then Davidson, 4th highest rated.
What a pick he's been.
4th highest rated player in the comp. Yeah, so it wasn't their superstars that necessarily got them back into the game, which I think is a massive positive with where they're going, throughout this season.
What's Dr. Davidson's season like, ratings-wise?
No, really well. He's actually up there in contention as the best wingers in the competition this season.
Not bad for a player that,
looks
he wasn't going to be on a list this year.